What if I told you that Europe's most terrifying movie villain wasn't invented by screenwriters, but by Nazi propagandists? And after the war, he was resurrected by a Jew who survived the Holocaust just to make money off German fears. And that film broke the lives of everyone who touched it. Welcome to the channel, JustSneak. Hit subscribe before you forget. Today we are digging into the darkest, most forgotten, and most cursed movie of West Germany. We are talking about the 1962 film, The Invisible Dr. Mabuse, Die Unsichtbaren Krallen des Dr. Mabuse. A film that people tried to ban before it was even shot. A movie where the monster turned out to be not who you expect. And a film that, like a mirror, showed how easily ordinary people turn into obedient soldiers of a dictatorship. You think John Wick or James Bond are the peak of the spy genre. The Germans made their hero earlier and scarier, because their villain wasn't fictional, he was real. 1962, the Berlin Wall had just been built. Germans lived in paranoia. Every neighbor could be an informant, and right there, in this hell, producer Arthur Bronner, a Jew who miraculously survived the camps, decides to resurrect Dr. Mabuse, a character that under the Nazis had been a symbol of the Jewish conspiracy. Why? Money. West Germany wanted to forget the concentration camps. People craved bloody entertainment, and Bronner gave them a freak show disguised as a detective thriller. But the project launch turned into a scandal. Bronner's studio, CCC Film, which he had built on the ruins of Berlin, was on the verge of bankruptcy. Two previous Mabuse films had barely broken even. Investors demanded guarantees. Bronner went all in. He mortgaged his own apartment and poured everything into the invisible clause. Know who wrote the script? Ladislas Fodor, a Hungarian who fled the fascists, and Brian Edgar Wallace, the son of the king of crime novels. They hated each other. Fodor called Wallace an empty-headed rich boy. Wallace shot back a communist agent. They didn't speak for 3 months. They passed pages through assistants. And when the film came out, both disowned it. Fodor soon killed himself. Wallace never wrote for cinema again. Welcome to the cursed project. Now look at the director. You know how he died. In 1986, he was stabbed to death by his own wife with a meat cleaver at their villa in Teneriffe. This is not fiction. This is a criminal case. Harold Reinl, a man feared even by hardened gangsters on screen. Starting his career as a stuntman for Nazi favorite Leni Riefenstahl, he made films about Indians and maniacs. By 1962, Reinl was a full-blown alcoholic, a despot, a tyrant. On the set of The Invisible Dr. Mabuse, he demanded that actors perform their own dangerous stunts. No safety, no doubles. Legendary Lex Barker, the very Tarzan, publicly called Reinl a sadist after the director made him hang from a helicopter over an abyss for half an hour. Barker screamed into the camera, "You're killing me." Reinl smiled and said, "We keep rolling." The scandal was buried thanks to the producer's money, but the stain remained, and that stain is blood. The worst part wasn't the stunts. The worst part, Reinl tortured his wife, actress Karen Dorr, right on set. Between takes, he would throw jealous fits, beat her, humiliate her, and at night they went back to the same house. And no one, do you hear me? No one said a word, because in 1960s Germany, staying silent about domestic violence was as natural as ignoring former SS officers in the government. Dorr endured. She acted in a film where she played a victim of an invisible maniac. Her real maniac was her husband. But the cameras didn't film that. Turn on logic. If the director is a tyrant and a drunk, the actors are broken people, and the producer is a gambler who bet everything, what could possibly go wrong? Absolutely everything. Shooting turned into hell, and shooting turned into hell. Because of fights between Reinl and Barker, production stopped 14 times. The budget doubled. Extras were recruited from refugees from East Germany. People who had lost their homes, families, futures. They were paid pennies. One day, the crowd of extras rioted. They hadn't been paid in 3 weeks. They blocked the entrance to the studio. Police arrived. Arthur Bronner personally walked out to the crowd with a suitcase full of cash. He wrote checks, but not to everyone. Those who shouted the loudest were fired that same day. Their characters were simply cut from the script. Those dead actors never worked in major cinema again. One of them, a 19-year-old kid from Silesia, hanged himself a year later. His suicide note read, "Cinema killed me. And do you know how they filmed invisibility? Without computer graphics, of course. Actors were rubbed with black velvet and forced to stand motionless for hours while the crew repositioned lights. One extra, the same kid from Silesia, fainted from dehydration. Raynal ordered him to be doused with water and keep filming. The boy lay in a puddle on a concrete floor, and the camera filmed his invisible body. Later, his kidney failed. They paid him 50 marks and sent him home. No lawsuits, no press. Welcome to German cinema, 1962. What is this film about? Briefly, no spoilers. A mad professor invents an invisibility serum. Dr. Mabuse, a criminal genius believed to be dead, immediately wants to steal it. An FBI agent and a beautiful assistant try to stop him. Sounds like a cheap thriller. Not quite. This is a political statement. In 1962, West Germany had just passed a law allowing wiretapping. The Invisible Dr. Mabuse is the first film to openly show. The state can watch you, and you won't even know. Scenes where characters talk in an empty room, while behind the wall, their conversation is recorded on tape. That's not science fiction. That's a documentary of how the surveillance state was built. The same system that later allowed former Nazis to take top posts in West German intelligence. And yes, one of the film's consultants, Dr. Werner Schmidt, was arrested in 1964 for spying for East Germany. He worked for the Stasi. Those are the invisible claws. Claws that reach from the past into the future. The scariest scene in the film is not a murder or a chase. It's the scene where Karen Dorr's character stares into empty space and whispers, "I feel someone watching me, but I see no one." In the cinema, people laughed. They didn't understand that 20 years later they would be watched not by phantoms, but by real cameras and microphones. And today, in the age of total digital surveillance, that line sounds like a prophecy. Mabuse won. We are all his invisible hostages. The premiere on March 30th, 1962, in West Berlin turned into a scandal. Critics tore the film apart. Audiences gave it a standing ovation. The magazine Filmblätter wrote, "This is the most cynical and talentless film of the year. Mabuse has become a clown, and his claws, cheap props." Another outlet, Der Spiegel, accused the creators of aestheticizing violence and trying to distract Germans from real problems. But the audiences loved it. Lines at cinemas were 3 hours long. People wanted to escape. They wanted to laugh at the monster their parents had feared, and they laughed. But the real scandal came later. French distributors who bought the rights demanded to cut the scene where Mabuse says, "Invisibility is power, and power is the ability to do evil with impunity." Why? Because in 1962, France had just ended its war in Algeria. French putschist generals had acted exactly like that, covertly, brutally, with impunity. Censorship is a terrifying thing, but the wildest scandal broke when it was revealed that Arthur Bronner had used footage from previous Mabuse serials, filmed under the Nazis. Yes, the very footage where actors in SS uniforms flash across the screen. Bronner claimed, "It's just military uniforms of that time, nothing more." Film critics demanded a ban. Lawyers for the heirs of Fritz Lang, Mabuse's creator, filed a lawsuit. The case was dismissed, but the stain remained. A dirty, sticky stain of the Nazi past that just wouldn't wash away. And today, as far-right parties are again gaining votes in Germany, those shots look less like a historical artifact and more like a warning. And now, the dirtiest part. What the memoirs and interviews stay silent about. Who hated whom on set? Lex Barker hated Harold Raynal. But that's only half the trouble. Barker also hated Wolfgang Price, the actor who played Mabuse. Price had starred in Goebbels' propaganda films during the war. For Barker, an American who had fought in Korea, that was personal betrayal. One day in the dressing room, Barker lunged at Price with his fists. Assistants pulled them apart. They never spoke again. Every scene with both of them was shot with doubles or cut together from different takes. And who betrayed whom? Karen Dorr, the director's wife, secretly recorded Raynal insulting actors and producers on tape. She conspired with cinematographer Ernst Kalinke. Why? To blackmail Bronner and squeeze out bonuses for herself? And it worked. Dorr got twice her promised fee. Raynal never found out that his own wife was working against him. They divorced in 1966. 20 years later, she stabbed him to death. Coincidence? I don't think so. Hook. They say that on the set of The Invisible Dr. Mabuse, a real murder took place. No, not an actor. A lighting technician was found dead in a storage room, wires in his hands. Official version, accident. But the crew whispered that he was eliminated because he had seen too much. What exactly? We will never know. The police didn't even do an autopsy. 1962, Cold War. Nobody cares about the death of a simple worker. Welcome to the film industry. Expert analysis, 60 years later. What do we have? The Invisible Doctor. Mabuse is a disaster film that survived against all odds. Its strengths, atmosphere, black and white imagery, shadows falling on walls, eerie music. It still works. Its failure, the script. Plot holes so huge you could drive a tank division through them. But the scandals around the film made it cult. In Germany, they show it on television every Christmas, like the irony of fate in Russia. People laugh at it. They don't realize they are laughing at their own fears. And that, perhaps, is the most frightening compliment to its creators. Why do I, the host of JustSneak, believe this film should be shown in schools? Because it demonstrates how propaganda works. Mabuse doesn't force people to do evil. He gives them invisibility, anonymity, impunity. And then people become monsters themselves. Isn't that a portrait of today's world, where ordinary citizens, hiding behind slogans and symbols, kill, rob, and rape because nobody will see us? Somebody will, always. And this film is that mirror you'd better not break. The Invisible Dr. Mabuse is not just a movie. It's a black hole at the center of the German soul that sucks in everyone who gets too close. The film destroyed careers. Director Harald Reinl drank himself to death, then was killed by his wife. Producer Arthur Brauner went bankrupt from lawsuits and died in obscurity. Lex Barker ended his life in poverty in New York. Wolfgang Price received hate mail from neo-Nazis until his dying days for defiling the image of Mabuse. Even cinematographer Kalinke went blind in one eye a year after filming, doctors said from constant strain. But the film lives on. It outlived everyone who made it. And today, as the world again splits into warring camps as revanchists raise their heads, old Dr. Mabuse rubs his invisible claws with satisfaction. He knows humans are weak. Humans want to be afraid. Humans want to hate. Humans want to hate. Just give them a reason and they will go kill. Here on JustSneak, we won't give him that reason. Watch old cinema. Analyze it. Draw conclusions. That's the only way not to become an obedient soldier of some madman with an armband or a letter on his armor. Hit like if you made it to the end. Subscribe. And every week we'll dig through cinema's dirty laundry. And in the comments, answer this. Who is scarier, Dr. Mabuse, or modern dictators who control countries through social media and fakes? And don't forget, sometimes the invisible claws are already around your throat. You just can't see them yet. Can you hear me? Because I can hear you.